Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Green Zone podcast with yours truly, Cameron Green, on the Thursday after Super Bowl Sunday, which concluded last Sunday. And that kind of leaves us in a gray area with the NFL season. It's been a great year and a great time to be a football fan. But I got to talk to you. We're going to dig into this real quick about how I think it's just a disappointing way the NFL season had to end on Sunday. Not that it's a bad thing that the Eagles won. I'm not saying that. But the manner that they won maybe leaves people more hungry for some more football, which is probably what's good for football down the line and down the stretch. So we're gonna jump right into the Super Bowl talk. Like I say, I'm Cameron Green with you on the Green Zone podcast, exclusively on our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on our Twitter page at Green Zone Pod and our baseball channel GZ Baseball. That is our baseball YouTube page, and on TikTok, GZ Baseball will be on there as well. Newly, as of not too long ago, back on TikTok here on the Green Zone podcast. I want to start off right here, though, by the best thing that could have happened for the NFL is that the Philadelphia Eagles won this year's Super Bowl at Super Bowl 59 and denied the chance for the Chiefs to get a three-peat. I'm saying it's the best thing for the NFL and for the future of football that the Chiefs lost this year, despite the fact that we've never seen a three-peat champion. And despite the fact that it is a rematch of a Super Bowl 2 years ago that didn't excite too many people to begin with, the best thing for everyone is that we have a new champion in football. Yes, we have a new champion that's also been a champion in the last 10 years, but hey, we are getting progress in the NFL and moving it away from, I want to say, a dynasty sport, because I don't think we see that many dynasties in football still, or even in sports in general, because once I think you establish a team win one, and then two, the next collective bargaining agreement happens to make it harder for these teams to structure to build super teams. Now, I think the Chiefs, it's going to be kind of a gray area for what they are into for this next season, because it really is exploiting a lot from what we all thought from the Chiefs was this whole year. The whole Denny Green, you can insert right here that, they are who we thought they were. It kind of does apply for what we think the Kansas City Chiefs were. I am going to start, though, off with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that it is remarkable that Saquon Barkley has brought this team to a Super Bowl championship. And you could say the rest of the Eagles ride in the back of Saquon Barkley. You could say the rest of the Eagles ride in the back of Jalen Hurts or A.J. Brown or Cooper DeJean. But it's really just a great collaboration for one of the great teams that we've seen that I think is a very underrated team. I don't think we're really going to remember this Super Bowl fondly because it was boring. It was boring. It's a blowout game, not an entertaining way you want to end the season. But I think we are going to remember this Eagles team in a pretty positive light because of what they did in denying the Chiefs a chance to be a three-peat champion. I think that is the thing that we will remember most about this Super Bowl. Now, in looking at that too, Saquon Barkley has the greatest rushing year for a running back ever. I'm taking it right here. It's the greatest running back season in NFL history. You break the single season all-time rushing record for single game, for actually single season and postseason combined. The Terrell Davis record that falls. You win Offensive Player of the Year. You win a Super Bowl. I guess the only thing that could have been missing was the MVP of the league and the Super Bowl MVP. But like, it's such a it's such a minute thing to sit there and gush over or simply critique him over, because Saquon Barkley simply transformed this Philadelphia Eagles team into what they were this year compared to what they were last year. No disrespect to DeAndre Swift, but this is a team that is very much capable of what they are because of Saquon Barkley. And it helps too when you have a new superstar quarterback, Jalen Hurts. I think with this win, Jalen Hurts is now a solidified top five quarterback in football, up there with the Lamars, the Mahomes, the Allens, the Burrows, the so on and so forth. Jalen Hurts' name has to be on there because all Allen, Lamar, and Burrow all don't have is a Super Bowl. And they did it by beating the greatest of our time right now here. And I wouldn't say the greatest of all time. And I'll get to that here in a second about that GOAT debate. But Jalen Hurts simply willing himself twice now in the last three Super Bowls to playing to the best of his ability, and could have possibly won two MVP awards in the Super Bowl had the Eagles won 2 years ago. But it really leaves a very interesting area for where the Chiefs go from here, because we've seen what the Eagles have done And the mountain they climbed from Sirianni almost being fired last year, and some even calling for Sirianni to be fired this year, to having Jalen Carter fall to him, the Eagles in the draft. Saquon doesn't get re-signed by the Giants. You go to the Eagles. Jalen, it all stems back from like when Jalen Hurts took over this team after Carson Wentz got hurt and they moved on after that Foles Super Bowl year. I think that's where this second Super Bowl really begins because it almost arcs in a way of, like you would say the story could arc here when they lost to the Chiefs 2 years ago. And the downfall is last year losing in that way they did that was really hard for you to end. But there's a mountain that goes like this because the Eagles are at this point here, and I think that it could only go up for the time being. I'm very confident this Eagles team will for sure make the playoffs next year. I know we sit there and say, geez, Cameron, why would this team not make the playoffs? Well, we see it a lot. Teams that just do not get back to even the big game, let alone the playoffs, the following seasons, and we have to be careful about what we get ahead of ourselves here. But I do think the NFC East, aside from the Commanders this year, proved to be the Eagles' world that we're just living in. And there's other good teams in the NFC. There's the Lions, there's the Vikings, there's the Rams, and there's the 49ers still. We can't forget about the 49ers. But I think that we are seeing the Eagles truly for what they can be here in the NFL. It's a remarkable way to end a Super Bowl run for the Chiefs. I should say for the Eagles to end that history, create history of your own. But I'm going to transition here into Kansas City. I was just talking with them for a second, a moment ago before I got on my little mountaintop ramble, whatever you want to call it. I'm the host of this show. I make the rules. Really looking at what the Chiefs did this year, it can't be underestimated that it was a great season for Andy Reid and for Patrick Mahomes. And there are some positives you can look at. There is a new addition in Xavier Worthy, who this kid could be a star for years to come if they use him right. And if only they had Rashee Rice for most of the year, this Chiefs team could have been even more dominant than they were all season. Now, DeAndre Hopkins played well right away when the Chiefs first got him, and it looked like it was going to be a brand new team. And then Hopkins simply kind of just faded around into existence. Made some plays in the Super Bowl, but really wasn't that much of a factor beyond the big playoff run and so on and so forth for Hopkins. It'd be interesting to see what happens for DeAndre Hopkins if he does come back to Kansas City. I don't really know. I think Kansas City might pivot towards T. Higgins or Cooper Kupp, to be honest with you, because I think that's where they're going to make a lot of their moves. But the scariest move of all to make is what happens to Travis Kelce. Personally, I think this year was a different year for Travis Kelce, not seeing his brother in the league. And I think seeing all the fame that he gets outside of the football field, whether it's his relationship or his podcasts or his commercials or just his name being in the dialogue of everyday conversation with people, that Travis Kelce has set himself up for a great career outside of football. The great ones always know how to do it. Gronkowski did a great job at paving the way for tight ends to really get their way in a media career. But I mean, when you look at Kelce, it was a lackluster year for Travis Kelce, and that's the funny thing is that we sit here and say such a lackluster year. Well, for some tight ends, that's the best it gets. If I'm Kansas City, though, you signed Noah Gray to a contract extension in the season, and I liked the way Noah Gray played at times. Noah Gray looked like a younger version of Kelce at times, not the full season, but Noah Gray kind of looked like Travis Kelce at times. I don't think it's a stretch to say because of the way that Kansas City chooses to use the tight end. They looked really good this year. They looked really, really solid. The Mahomes Noah Gray connection looked good. The Mahomes Xavier Worthy connection looked really nice. The Rashee Rice connection with Mahomes was going really well until he busted up his knee. But I think it's almost like we think of the early Patriot teams. You forget about, Brady played 20 some odd years, but there's almost like two different teams for the dynasty. And that first one, it's like the Dion Branches of the world, even the Wes Welkers, and and so on and so forth there. And then you get to the newer ones with the Edelmans and the Gronkowskis and the those kind of players, the Amendolas, like those are the ones that you remember because of more recently. But there's some good players on those early Patriot teams, and I don't think this Chiefs dynasty is over. We want to say, oh well, 3 in 5 years, that's not it's not bad, but Pittsburgh's still the one to get 4 and 6, or and one of those things. But I think it's foolish to say that Kansas City won't be back in this game. It's foolish to say that anytime that 15 is on the field, you give yourself a chance. There's only so many quarterbacks that come around in the golden era of Montana, a Unitas, a Brady, an Aikman, the winners, that whenever you have them on the field, you got yourself a good chance to win any game that you play. And I don't know if this is the end for Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. It's certainly one of the greatest tandems that we've ever seen in pro sports. You talk about, you can argue NFL, sure, whatever, but if you want to put up there with Jordan and Pippen, you want to put up there with, Mantle and Maris, like you could really say it up there that Kelsey and Mahomes is like the greatest tandem in football since Brady Gronkowski, for sure for tight ends. I mean, well, maybe you're looking at Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison and Phil Rivers and Antonio Gates, but the difference between Phil Rivers, Antonio Gates, Kelsey, and Mahomes is there's some Super Bowls in between there that do alter the way we feel about some of those guys, and that's something that you cannot really be unwritten there. The only one comparison I think it is Brady and Gronk. Brady and Gronk and Kelsey and Mahomes. It's the two greatest QB receiver tandems. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say it. In the 21st century, we'll exclude Montana and Rice from this conversation, or even Steve Young and Rice. And there's some other ones in that 20th century that are, you could certainly have a discussion about. In the 21st century, nobody has combined winning and statistics more than Brady and Gronkowski and Kelsey and Mahomes. And the thing is like Brady had his Super Bowls before he got Gronkowski. And who knows who's going to be the next guy that Brady, or actually that Mahomes gets in the tandems. Is it going to be, you know, Xavier Worthy going to be the next Tyreek Hill? And that's going to be the thing. Is Cooper Kupp going to help bring this Kansas City team back to a Super Bowl next year? Is T. Higgins the answer? I don't know. I do not know. And that's the great thing about sports. Because I think if you look at it too, what's going to be harder for Belichick and Brady, I said what's going to be harder for Reed and Mahomes is Brady and Belichick were together for all those 20 years. I highly doubt that Andy Reid is going to be there for 20 some odd years in Kansas City. There's going to be a lot of change in Kansas City in the next coming years, and Travis Kelce leaves this year. That might be the first domino that falls here for Kansas City in this era of the Kansas City Chiefs, let alone the 50 years the Chiefs sucked. I'm going to say it. They were terrible. A lot of the times, just non existent. Had a few good years here and there. And then Andy Reid comes in and you're saved and Super Bowl champions. And the picture of that kid I saw, the nephew who was crying during the Super Bowl, he's experienced three already. Excuse me, everybody. He's experienced three in about 10 years, or he's 10 years old. Three Super Bowls, 10 years old. I'm 22 years old, still have not experienced my Vikings to win a Super Bowl. And I know the list only goes on and on for Lions fans, for Atlanta Falcons fans. Like it only goes on and on from here. And Buffalo Bills fans. Like I'm merely a blimp on the radar in terms of, if I'm here sitting feeling like I am, in some way, I'm being tortured as a fan. But really, you know, it's a long line for those who have struggled Pro sports not kind to the mind, not kind to the heart, not kind to the fandom. But like, what do I look at where Kansas City goes from here? I think it's spent a total amount of money and draft capital gets spent on the offensive line. I think if you're an old lineman, you might be really excited because you think you might get yourself moved up. Get yourself Chiefs are gonna move up, take yourself a new offensive lineman because it proved that they could not contain Patrick Mahomes or the offensive line could not protect him. And Mahomes was not Mahomes because he was running for his life half the time out there. And the big, question out there is if Philadelphia can swing anything, could Myles Garrett be in an Eagles uniform? I mean, if that was the way it is, it's for sure the reason why the Eagles would be the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year already. And I mean, right now, in the way too early rankings, the Eagles are still already the favorite to win the Super Bowl and the best team because you have to give them props for doing so. But there's a lot of teams in the NFC that are looking to get better and have the capital to do so. The Commanders are not going to sit here and roll over on the Eagles. They're simply not going to. I thought the Green Bay Packers were going to be one of the best teams in the NFC this year. They proved to make themselves a good playoff run, whatever and what have you. But they need to expand, as do the Lions, as do the Vikings, as do the Bears. That whole NFC North is wide open, honestly, from year to year. And then we look at the Niners. The Niners are still the 49ers. Are they going to pay Purdy or they're not going to pay Purdy? The Falcons could be building something here with Penix and the Seahawks. What do they do with Geno Smith or DK Metcalf? Do they move each other? Like, there's so many revolving doors in the NFL season, which I love. I love this time of year. I love free agency in general in sports because I think it just shows how teams think that we want to interpret how they think throughout the seasons and how they really might come across. Do they really believe the way we believe? Do they think differently? Are they prioritizing something else? It's hard to say. I mean, and looking at here, my favorite time of year is coming upon us too after the Super Bowl, and that is baseball time. Spring training's upon us, friends. We are there. Golfing season is here. Daytona 500 is this Sunday. We were here. We are here. We are in it. We're in the heart of it. March Madness is coming up. There is a lot going on here. We still have our NBA season, which I think in this podcast for most time because spring training will be happening here shortly. But still, you want to give your predictions and stuff, and we have about a month before spring training and opening day correlate. NBA and the NHL, and that seems to be the main forefront here. We'll still talk football. We'll still talk basketball. We'll still talk baseball. We'll be all over here. We might even talk some auto sports. I'm a big NASCAR guy. I've never shared that though on this podcast. I'm a big NASCAR guy. I love watching NASCAR. Super fun sport to get into for me. That's just how I feel about it. But things are gonna be different here. But it's an end to an NFL season, and it was a great season. It's maybe not the greatest game to end with. Maybe it's a little lackluster, but it was a great season. It really was. Maybe I'm saying that because my Vikings made a playoff game. Maybe they still got their ass handed to them by the Rams. That happened. Happens. One team, one fan base is happy at the end of the year. And congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles and their fans and their city for experiencing that for the second time in less than 10 years. So, in the Green Zone podcast, we are saying goodbye to the NFL season. I want to thank you all for sticking with me here as we sign off on this Thursday after Super Bowl Sunday. And we look forward to what is next here on the Green Zone podcast. With yours truly, Cameron Green will be on the mic as always. I'm wishing you guys a good rest of your day, wherever you may be, and bid the NFL season goodbye. We'll see you guys next week.